Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to Zahn Academy. I'm so happy that you all joined us today on this last couple of weeks of summer. We hope that you all are enjoying the beautiful summer, getting ready for fall soon. And you know what? We're so happy to have Steve Klein here with us. He is our product specialist, and he's going to be discussing mastering the zirconia workflow from calibration to consistency. Thank you, Steve, for joining us today and preparing this great presentation for us all.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you, Fran.
Of
And I
course.
really appreciate everyone taking the time to stop in and view this. Some of you may know me from around the block, so to speak. I've been in the industry a while, and I'll give you a quick introduction. I I did start in the industry about a little over 20 years ago with Darby Dental Lab Supply. They were the first company that I worked for, carrying the bag, showing products, and really cutting my teeth, so to speak, on in the dental world. I really learned a lot in that business, and with that particular company in the Noritake products. I then was kind of transferred over to Zahn Dental when they purchased Darby Lab Group. So that was kind of a fun change as well. New roles, new positions, and kind of really furthered the expertise in porcelains, and zirconia was really just getting started at about that time. And then, excuse me, about after 6 years working with Zahn at that time, Carrare Nortaki came and were looking to launch their Katana Zirconia in the US. At that time, they tapped me and said, hey, you know pretty much what we need to have talked about here in the US. Would you mind coming to work for us? And that's kind of the short and condensed version of how I ended up there at Nortaki for about 12 years with them, and now circled back to the home company, back to Zahn. I'm really loving it. I love all the people I work with. We have such a great team that I'm really happy to be able to contribute, and of course, help anyone out there that's maybe listening to this program today.
Absolutely. We're a big little family, right, Steve? That's what I like to say.
For sure we are.
I just want to let everybody know that Steve has prepared some poll questions and I'll be launching them throughout the presentation, and there will be a live Q&A. So if you have any questions at all, please type them in at the bottom of your screen at the Q&A section. Enjoy, everybody. Thanks again, Steve.
Of course. And just a quick word too on the questions, the Q&A. We're going to kind of reserve some time at the end of this, certainly for that Q&A process. But if you do have a question that's nagging at you right now, please go ahead and pop it in, type it in, and if it's relevant to what we're talking about currently at the time, someone else is probably thinking the same thing or has that same question. So I'd like to have this be a little bit more interactive and certainly get all the questions answered. So do not hesitate, pop them in. We'll maybe be able to take a pause for the cause and get that taken care of for you right away. So back to back to that Zahn scenario and story. We talk about consistency and quality and things of that nature in the zirconia, but I think it really starts with that team. It's a support team that has nothing but the laboratory's best interest at heart. And we have some great team members, I will say that, from the sales team that help sort through all of the many, many products that are available, to myself, who I can help with technical aspects of it. And then, of course, we have a technical team that is quick to help you in any way they can, whatever issues or problems that you might have, or even just simple questions too. So I think whenever you're dealing with zirconia products or the equipment that supports that, it's really important to stay ahead of that. Don't guess. If you're not sure, get us on the phone, email us, whatever, text us, whatever it takes to get a hold of us and get your answer before you go down the wrong road, because it's easy to set up bad habits or potentially have issues if you don't have all the right answers. So we're here to help. And I think the second part of that equation is having a really extensive portfolio. What materials are available through the Zahn portfolio really make the difference in quality as well. We handle materials. All of the zirconia materials are time tested. They're from companies, manufacturers that really have been in the industry a long time, you will, even if you're not using one of these particular brands, you already or currently, you will have probably heard of them and maybe have even seen some of the results. So what I'd like to do is break down that vast portfolio. We have a lot of materials. And so it can kind of be a little bit of a minefield to sort through and figure out, well, which one do I use and where do I use it and why would I want to use that? So I'm going to break this down into six kind of, I would call them categories, if you will, of the zirconia that we have within our portfolio. And if you'll notice, some of them too kind of follow the timeline of how zirconia progressed from, going all the way back to pure white zirconia to the new hybrid layered materials that we have available now. The first category is, in fact, the white zirconia. And there is several manufacturers within Zahn that do create and have their own white zirconia. This is designed so that the technician can go in and do their own characterization staining, their own shade staining, and really be as detailed or as simple as they would like to be. The white disc, because there's not chroma built into the disc, there's not a difficult manufacturing process, are typically less expensive. So you can get some good values in these particular discs. But what you do is you end up trading a little bit of the savings in material for labor and additional materials. So you now have to buy liquids, keep those available and in stock. And then you also have to either cover the labor costs of having someone apply that material, or obviously if you're a one-man show, you're cutting away time to do that, which could maybe be utilized for marketing or some other process within the laboratory. So there's somewhat of a trade-off in using white zirconia, but it is consistent if you are the one doing it. So there's kind of the other catch to it is if you have a technician that is out, maybe sick or vacation or whatever, and someone else tries to jump in and do it, maybe not a really good transition because you don't have that built-in consistency of having the color built already into the zirconia disc. So definitely something to consider. If you are currently using white, you may want to take a really strong look at either the monochromatic or the multi-layered disc that I'm about to show you as well. Amann Girrbach is one of the companies that we carry. They're Ceramil Solid HT White, 1,000 megapascals. That means it's strong enough for full arch application. You can use that for custom abutments as well. No problem. Any of the high strength materials, that is going to always be true. Full arch, or custom abutments, or anywhere you might have a heavy clenching bruxing patient, that would also be ideal for them. The solid FX white, that is more of an aesthetic material. So it has a really higher level of translucency. And with that higher level of translucency, you always swap and trade off some strength in that. So you'll see that's a 600 megapascal material, but you do have a lot of aesthetics in that particular selection. Also, they have the solid ZI white within the Amann Girrbach portfolio. This would also be for all cases. It's more opacious though. This is kind of an original version of it, of the zirconia for them. And it's more opacious, which can be a benefit too. So if you have a case where you maybe have a titanium implant case below it, or maybe it's a dark prep, this is something that you could use to cover and block out some of that darkness. Within the Dental Direct line, I guess I should tell you too, Amann Girrbach is from Austria. That's an Austrian company that makes really high quality zirconia. Dental Direct is a German company that makes really high quality zirconia. And of course, Kuraray Noritake is Japanese, and Zerlux is both US as well as offshore made too. So we have wide range of materials available. Again, Dental Direct 1200, high strength. Noritake, also high strength. And one of the benefits too of having these strong materials, you have a wide range of use again. And also one of the aspects typically found in some of these are extra thick discs. You have thicker options available. The next progression within that zirconia timeline of how it was developed would be the high strength monochromatic with 3Y performance. Now, what that means is monochromatic, I hear this interchanged a lot, monochromatic as well as monolithic. Monolithic purely means that you're using a full contour zirconia material case without layered, without layered porcelain onto that. So monolithic just means 100% zirconia. Monochromatic means it's 100% the same color, top to bottom within the disc. So there's kind of some confusion at times when you have monochromatic versus monolithic. This material was kind of the next generation that came out after white zirconia. And this is really the first foray into aesthetic zirconia, something that could be milled, sintered, and placed in the patient's mouth without a lot of fuss and effort and work to it. I will say that it always helps to have, cut back and layering to this material because the translucency is definitely lower. There's more opacity built into this material. So if you do want to use a material like this, expect some cutback and layering in the incisal edge, possibly on the cusp tips of a posterior unit. And it is having that opacity is not necessarily the end of the world either. I mean, it's kind of a good thing at times when you're working with bleach shades or these high value, BL1, BL3, B1s, even A1s. Sometimes you want some reflective quality built into that disc, and that opacity will help you in that situation. Creates a much better looking bleach case. In this lineup, again, Amann Girrbach has the solid HT plus PS, meaning pre-shaded, 1,000 megapascals. They have the solid Gen X, also 1,000, and it's again just next generation reiteration within that company's lineup. Dental Direct has BioZ X2, a little higher megapascal at 1150. Karare Noritake has, again, the HT10, which is white, HT12 and HT13. These are at 1100 megapascal. And the HT12 basically means A2, A3, and kind of A1.5 to A2, I would say, is even more accurate. And then the HT13 is really A3 to A3.5. So you kind of select based on those and on those shades that you need. And it's, again, available in thicker discs as well. And the last one on the list here within that category would be the Zerlux 16 Plus, 1200 megapascals. So it's really quite strong material and full complement of the A through D range shades and a couple bleach shades thrown in as well. The next category, third category here, would be the high strength multi-layered with 3Y performance. So this takes that one that we just talked about, the 3Y performance of strength, but now we're adding the multi-layered aspect of chroma built into the disc, only chroma at this point. So it still is improvements. It has some more aesthetic benefit to it, but you may still need to do a little bit of cutback and incisal enhancement. Of course, it depends on the doctor. If it's a posterior case, single unit posterior, it probably would need nothing. You can place any one of these and have great acceptance both by the patient and the doctor. So it's not necessarily that you have to do an incisal cutback, but if you're moving it into the anterior zone, I would expect some characterization to be done. And in this particular lineup, Amann Girrbach makes one called Solid Bion, and you're going to see this a couple times in the other categories because it's a very unique material. This one is multi-layered 4Y, but it has the strength of the 3Y performance built into it. So you have a very aesthetic disc, which has high strength top to bottom throughout the disc profile. So it's unique. This is not one that you're going to see everywhere. It's one I would take a strong look at if I were you. And then on top of that, we have the Cube 1 MLHT Plus. This is again just layered. It doesn't have any additional translucency layered into it, kind of like the Solid Bion does. It's, like I said, it's unique. It's a strange blend on that one. And last in this category would be Katana HTML Plus at 1150 megapascal. Same thing, A through D range, and a bleach shade called NW within that lineup. This the category here is called the medium strength, or this would be the fourth category, is medium strength multi-layered with 4Y performance. This would be kind of a good catch-all for any case as long as it is 3 units or less. So it's highly aesthetic that you can place any one of these in the anterior zone. You can put it in the posterior, 3-unit bridge, no issue. It's quite strong enough for that. The caveat to that would be if the patient is a bruxing type patient, you wouldn't necessarily want to use this for that type of patient. You would want to go back to one of the high strength 3Y performers. In this one, again, the Zahn Bion appears here because it is truly a 4Y, kind of an enhanced 4Y material that has that 3Y performance strength. So it's a unique bird. Dental Direct Cube X2 ML. And you'll see there's a 700 megapascal strength on it. So again, kind of right in the middle. Noritake's version is called Katana STML. And these are all exhibiting really nice aesthetics with some good strength for longevity. The fifth category here is called high translucency, high aesthetic with the 5Y performance. So in other words, this would be kind of a material that you would use as an alternative to Emax or any other lithium silicate products that are out there and available now. We're seeing really strong surgence in that. The downfall is those have to be wet milled. And if you have a dry mill, of course, you can use any one of these in a dry mill and get great results that will rival and in some cases outperform the lithium disilicate products. And in the Amann Girrbau lineup, have Ceramil Zolid FX ML, 600 megapascal. And I guess to be noted on this too, I should tell you there is that is not shade specific in that category. So you would have to, and I'm sorry, I said category, I actually meant that particular line of the Zolid FX. It is not shade specific. So you would use one disc to cover basically A0, A1, A2 and A3 would be another disc, A3.5 and A4 would be another disc. And likewise in the Bs, they're ganged up so that you're always having 2 particular shades within one disc. And how would you determine that is where you place and nest that restoration within that disc profile. High, obviously you have the lighter shade, and lower in the disc profile, you have the darker shade. So it's kind of pretty straightforward on that, but just be aware that it is not shade specific. Dental Direct, we have the Cube X2 ML, 700 megapascal strength. So it's fairly high for the 5Y type material. You do have some added insurance with that strength. All the aesthetics is there. Karare Noritake Katana UTML is 550 megapascal strength. And this, of course, is for your aesthetic anterior type cases. And I say anterior, even though they truly say that you can do single units in the posterior. Any of these materials, I would be careful of that. Especially if it's a bruxing patient, don't do it. But more importantly, if they do decide to use this material in the posterior, I would highly, highly recommend bonding either one of these. Conventional cementation should not be used. I'll just be very blunt, should not be used. You should always bond these if you're using it in the posterior. That bonding helps provide a lot of that strength. Zirlux ML is obviously the Zirlux version of this nice, highly aesthetic anterior type material. And at 600 megapascal, kind of right in the middle. And last but not least in the categories, this is the latest trend and I'm sure you've all seen this in the magazines, trade journals, whatever internet ads you might be receiving. But it is kind of the perfect marriage of both worlds. It's both the 3Y in the base of the disc and either 4Y or 5Y up in the aesthetic zone of the disc. So you have the best of both worlds. It's high strength and high aesthetics. Any one of these on the list would be a really good choice as an all-around material for literally any indication in the laboratory. You can do veneers, you can do full arch all-on X-type cases, you can do cantilevered, you can do, I mean, this material really performs. Now, part of that is to be careful of where you're placing connectors. And the connector zones all have various strengths on these. And, part of our service to you is to make sure that you get all of that support technically up front. We're here to help you and help you understand these material differences, but they are getting more technical. The Amon Gearba, again, here's that solid bion with a 4Y enhanced translucency layered. But the unique feature of this particular material is that it's 1100 megapascal top to bottom, throughout the whole disc profile. So that's unique. Most of the other yttrium layered as well as chroma layered discs do not. They're multiple strength built in, like you see in the Dental Direct Cube YHL and the Nacera Pearl. Both of those have I say weaker, but it's it's still 800 megapascal in the incisal area and 1050 in the cervical area. So you still have a ton of strength built in, and the Nacera Pearl is even stronger at 1000 megapascal and 1200 in the cervical. So really two really nice choices there. The Katana YML is the latest one from the Karari Noritake team. That one has the 750 megapascal strength and 1100 in the cervical, basically taking STML and placing it on top of the HTML plus disc and melding those two together. Last on the list, we have the Zerlux Transitions. Again, this is an enhanced translucency that is different layering than the dentin area. But it has a high strength of 1200 megapascals throughout the disc profile again, very much like the solid bion at the top of the list. So no risk on any one of those. You can, with these materials, like I say, it's a catch-all or all-around material for everything. So what it allows you to do within your laboratory space is to reduce the amount of inventory too, and have a material that will cover all aspects. All the aesthetics is there, all the strength is there. And that really covers all the categories. I don't know, Fran, if you had anything that you'd like to jump in here now, would be a great time.
Sure. So everybody, we have our first poll question. And basically, we just like to know, are you satisfied with your current zirconia right now? So if you wouldn't mind, we're just going to take a couple of seconds to see if you could answer. And it seems like most are saying yes, they are satisfied, which is pretty cool. That's great.
Good. And I can't get rid of that off my screen now. Oh, there we go. All right, never mind. So we're going to jump into some tips and processing steps to ensure the best possible outcome with all of the zirconia materials. And this is universal. It doesn't matter which material you're currently using, or even if it's not one that we currently, that we aren't selling to you. These are foundations to any zirconia, and it's been learned, some of it a lot by trial and error and the hard way through the years. So I hope you do get some benefit out of it. And here's the section I would say we may have some questions that pop up. If you do, like I said, if you do have one, don't hesitate. Pop on in with it. We'll address it right away. So the first, oops, sorry. There we go. So the first one that seems somewhat obvious, but I'm always surprised at how many people will circumvent around this and try different things, is always select the disc height that matches or is as close to the restoration height as possible. As long as it can accommodate it within that disc profile, that's the disc you should use. And the trap is that there's a lot of laboratories that want to try and use a condensed inventory. So they'll buy the thicker disc and say, well, I'll just go ahead and carve it within that disc and be just fine. But what you're doing is really doing a disservice to yourself, because you're paying for all of this material, and you might be just milling in a fraction of it, maybe a third of that disc thickness profile. So for instance, if the restoration where do you place it? Where do you nest it to get the best possible outcome then? Do you nest it high for a good looking incisal area? Do you nest it in the middle and have virtually no chroma, no enamel? Or do you nest it really low and have all chroma and nothing else? So I would really recommend making sure that you select a disc that does fit that restoration height as close as possible. That way you're not wasting money on thick discs that you're just milling away all that good characterization anyway. And then in addition to that, when you do use one that's closest, you have always the best possible shade match um, to the shade tab, because you're having all the chroma built into it then. Now, the exception to this particular rule would be when you are milling veneers, inlays, or onlays, and you're just needing to replace the enamel, in which case you may want to select a much thicker disc and just mill totally up in that enamel area. So, there's always exceptions to every rule, but always try and buy and stay as close to possible to the restoration height with your discs. Cleaning the restorations after milling. This one I see in a lot of laboratories using air guns and air blowers to just blow the dust off of the crowns. Not a good idea. Number one, in addition, I'll go into more of the details, but like with the guns, you can actually blow the crowns right out of your hand. They can clip against the suction system and induce microfractures into it before you've even got to the sintering stage. So be careful with ever using an air gun. I recommend never. And the reason for that is even if you have the very best dehydrators and collectors built onto your air system, what happens is just like how an air conditioner works in your house, when you release a compressed gas, it wants to cool and it cools rapidly. So what is happening up at the tip of the air gun is you're getting condensation building at the tip of the air gun, and little water droplets can then be blown directly onto the zirconia. It locks whatever dust was there right onto that surface, and that's it. You're going to have a spot and discoloration right there on that spot, no matter what you do in the sintering process. So I really do not recommend air guns. The little white spots, if you've ever seen that, it can be a couple things, but that's usually the big culprit right there. Especially now during the summer months, and as we're going into the hurricane season, when the humidity levels can be pretty dramatically high, it's a problem. And that's if you're just doing 1 or 2 crowns at a time and moving on and not really developing a lot of cold condensation built at the tip of the gun, you're probably okay. It's just better not to get into that habit, because as your workload increases, you're not going to notice when it starts to get that condensation building up there, and you could blow it directly right onto the crown. So it's something best avoided. What is ideal is to go ahead and use your suction system with soft, dry brushes. And all you need to do is loosen it up and let that suction take it away with one of the best is a soft toothbrush. That works great for the exterior areas of the whole crown or bridge. And an opaque brush works super for intaglio surface. So it gets down in there fine, and it's stiff enough that it'll help sweep out any of that dust. And it only adds a couple extra seconds at most to, if any, to that process of either blowing it or brushing it off. The other thing that I run into quite frequently on technical technical troubleshooting would be spots or discoloration on the zirconia. And a lot of that comes from either hand lotion or body oils that are deposited on the restoration prior to sintering. Now, while we see the moisture aspect of it build up during the summertime, the hand lotion and body oils typically are in the winter because it's drier air. You've got furnaces running in a lot of locations across the country. So you're lotioning up the hands and keeping your skin moisturized. But what you're doing if you're not wearing gloves is getting that contamination right into the zirconia, and it doesn't come out. You cannot get rid of it. The other thing too, I would say is powder-free gloves. Make sure they're powder-free, because that powder can have a reaction with it as well. You can get that deposited into the surface, especially that first one or two crowns that you use when you put the brand new gloves on. You could be depositing that powder directly into that surface of the zirconia, and it's important to avoid that. Cleaning restorations. After milling, you do not want to use an ultrasonic cleaner or a steamer to do that. I've seen both done, not ideal. Moisture can definitely cause a decrease in the translucency, given it's almost 100%, and the shade accuracy will also diminish. So the other aspect too is, like with a steamer, you can induce microfractures into the material much too easy with using either one of those techniques. Now, the the flip side of that coin is that some machines are wet milling machines, and so you have no choice but for it to be wet. A lot of some laboratories and will utilize the wet milling just to keep the dust down as well. I don't recommend it. It's better to get dust controlling systems as opposed to sacrificing the aesthetics of your that's your calling card. That's your main business, is those particular zirconia crowns. So you want to make sure that you're delivering the best possible product to the doctor that you can, and getting moisture and wetness on them is not the way to do it. If you do, and you have them wet, you have wet milled, so that would be the only time that I would tell you to use an ultrasonic cleaner to get that dust off of them. And you'll see it as soon as you place the crown into the jar or whatever you're using, the container in the ultrasonic cleaner, see a little cloud of white dust surround that crown. It's shedding and getting rid of all that. Here's the key. When you take it out, you want to make sure that you get it very thoroughly dry, and I mean bone dry. So the same is true if you're using pre-sintering stains and characterizing the material that way. You would use the kind of what I call the rule of twos. So remember to, you're going to dry the restoration for 20 minutes at 200 C, critical. And you want it to be as dry as possible, because not only will the aesthetics be affected, but you can risk cracking and breaking the restoration if you do not get it dry. Especially true with pontics. If the pontic, it's so much bulkier material that it can really soak up a lot of water. It'll feel and look totally dry on the outside, but inside you've trapped some moisture. And so if you ever see some splits and where that pontic usually connects at the abutment, that's where you'll sometimes spot it. It can split right in the middle of the pontic, but you'll typically see it push its way out at the connector. What else? One other thing too, that if you are doing some pre-sintered staining and you are wet milling, you now have two steps, because you have to dry it first. Coming out of the wet mill, you clean it in your ultrasonic cleaner, and you have to dry it thoroughly so that the stains are accepted properly and without altering the effects of the stain having moisture in the zirconia. So now you apply your stains and you have to dry it again prior to sintering. So if you're doing this technique, there's better ways. Let's talk. I mean, we can show you another way to get the same aesthetics without a lot of fuss. Verifying oven parameters are set correctly for the material being used. It would shock you how many times I run into laboratory. Yes, absolutely, we're using the correct programs, and say, I mean, my first question is, show me. I need to see it. So we'll take a look at it, and there is something in that particular parameter that's not set correctly. It's easy to do, believe me. And especially some ovens are a lot easier to do it with than others. So believe me, I get it. But what also is true is that some of them will say, well, zirconia is zirconia and it's close enough. The sintering program is close enough. And it's not. You really need to give that material its best, allow it to really shine and do its best possible for you by giving it the proper sintering. Don't just assume and click, hey, we're going to go ahead and use this program. Check and verify. A lot of the programs too that come pre-installed in the ovens, I have found, are not accurate. So be cautious of that too. Make sure to take a look at them and just, take a quick look at it. It may be absolutely correct, but there's times when it's not. And a note on that too is the manufacturer's IFUs are really only a starting point when it comes to sintering. We want that to be that's our baseline. We have to start there. So if you're calling me to troubleshoot, or any one of our other technical team, whoever you might get hold of, we need to know where that baseline is, and so we can make the best recommendations after that. In those IFUs, there are variances based on your voltage that's coming into the facility. There's thermocouples, age of the heating elements. All of those things are factors that we are going to talk about later when it comes to calibration. But right now, just want to make sure that you understand that the IFUs are not the written in stone thing. That's your starting point. And what we'll do is we will potentially go higher if you need to lighten or get rid of some of the chroma, or lower the temperature if you want to darken it. We may stretch that program if we're looking to get translucency, creating a little bit longer hold times, or ramp rate, or both. So just know that that's not the end all story, the IFU. Calibration, all right, we discussed that one. Proper use of sintering beads. This one is, ideally, the beadless sintering trays are really nice. I would really recommend them. If you don't have them, they're nice. You don't have to mess with an extra expensive beads, and potentially having a batch or at least 1 or 2 units go bad in a sintering cycle because the beads were already past their prime. So if you do use beads, however, what you want to take a look at is always use a minimal layer of beads in that sintering tray, because what you want to do is make sure that you're not putting a large bulk or adding bulk to that firing program, because everything that you put in there robs away from that heating process. So to preserve the heat, go minimal on the amount of beads that go in there. If you were able to stack those beads one on top of another, you would want to do about 2 beads depth. That's it. 1 bead on top of the other, and don't pour it halfway full into the tray. That's not necessary, and that is way too much. So keep the bulk down, put the units in, and you're good to go. One of the things too, when to replace the beads, you'll see either there's a glaze that's on those beads that has started to come off. You're going to see a very dry, dull patch areas on those beads, or you're going to see them completely discolored, starting to turn that yellowish green color, brownish. That's time, chuck them and start over, fresh batch. That is absolutely going to affect your outcome of your shades of the restorations going in. And also, just another quick word on purging too. The amount that you do put in there of units into that tray, you should be able to pass the eraser end of a pencil between any one of the units there. You do not want them nestled in that so that they're so close you can't pass a pencil between. It requires some heat to be able to circulate among those units and get surrounding all those areas. That's going to give you the best results. So don't overpack. If that sintering oven is packed and you are at the limit on being able to get sintered, get another furnace, because you're already past your choke point, and also probably running a little dangerously close. If anything goes down, you're going to be really suffering for getting the work done out on time. So it never hurts to have extra furnace. I'll show you some option here at the end of this presentation that might be something to consider for you. Purging contaminants from the oven. This is also something that should become part of your standard operating procedure on a monthly basis. Of course, that depends on volume, but that's kind of a good, first of the month or end of the month, whatever date you pick, you should go ahead and plan on starting to go ahead and purge your ovens on a periodic basis. Even these multi-layered zirconias, all of them have that chromas. You're not staining and dipping, but those can get expelled out into the furnace and can cause discoloration and shades being off. So just go ahead and plan on purging at least on a monthly basis. You would use a material, and we sell it at Zahn here, called Purge All. It's designed to kind of like a sponge. When you heat the oven up, it soaks up all of those contaminants, and then you just throw it out and continue to do another batch until you see them come out clean and white. And be careful. There is a purge all for porcelain furnaces, as well as the one designed for sintering furnaces. Make sure you get the sintering furnace version. If you use the porcelain version one, you'll get a tray of pretty glassy looking stuff comes out. The temperatures are not the same, so there is a difference. As an alternative, you can use chips and broken pieces of white zirconia, though it must be white. Can't use a colored zirconia to mop up colorants. So just if you do have some white zirconia around, you can take a hammer and break up the pieces and put a nice volume of that in the tray and fire it in that purging cycle. A lot of ovens do have purging cycles built into them, but they were designed, a lot of them, prior to these more technical or higher temperature zirconias. So I would tell you to put in your own program. It's better, more accurate. And what you're looking to do with that program is go 50 degrees hotter than your high temperature, whatever that is. If it's 1550, you want to be at 1600. If it's 1450, you want to be at 1500, and then basically just hold that for 2 hours. Now that will be your own personal purging cycle. Speed does not matter. 10 up, 10 down is fine. Doesn't have to be anything more fancy than that. Any questions so far? None? Okay. So let's talk about speed sintering. Feel the need for speed. I couldn't resist to put Tom a little Top Gun in there. But is speed sintering right for you? I mean, that's a really big question, because if you have a practice that's next door or in town, or you have to have that rush case where you really need to get it out the door, then yeah, I would say speed cycles are great and there's a purpose for them, but be careful of overusing them as well, because I have a tendency to believe, and I've seen it with my own eyes, that the longer programs are actually better. You're going to have better aesthetics if you can do the overnight programs. They look better. They're just by the nature of the material. Each of the materials that we talked about earlier do have some speed cycles, but we don't have to go into each one of those. If this is something that interests you in the speed cycles, please let me know, let any of our Zahn team members know, and we'll help you figure out how to get down that road. And I know that push for same-day dentistry is really pushing this particular aspect of it, but just make sure that you're ready for that and that the equipment is ready for that, because speed requires both accuracy and the proper equipment. Nobody would jump into any one of those particular machines without making sure that it was absolutely spot on, accurate, and of course, dialed into its maximum. Testing and calibration of that sintering oven. So when you start with a new zirconia material, or even with your current one, if you're starting to see fluctuations in the outcome, this is the first step I would do. I would get the calibration and check, calibration kits, and check to make sure that you're accurate. What is what's happening inside the oven truly what is on the readout on the outside of the oven? In most cases, it's not. You'd be very shocked. Even brand new ovens, they're calibrated at the factory, but once it gets installed in your particular location at the lab, you really should calibrate it there, because voltage coming into that laboratory makes a big difference. It will fluctuate on the outcome of that temperature. And there's of course there's other things on older ovens. Thermocouple, is it new, is it old? Heating elements, are they still accurate? Those are all things to take into consideration. And what you don't want to have happen is for the doctor to be asking, hey, what's going on here? My cases are looking different and I don't know what's changed. Because it's so subtle, you typically don't see it. It happens really slowly, where there can be a change. And so by creating a standard operating procedure of doing your calibration and adjusting the oven accordingly is really a way to avoid any of that discomfort. what I would say once a quarter is enough on that standard operating procedure, I would say, unless you're doing a ton of units. That would be the only exception to that case. Variations. If it's 10 degrees or less variation, you don't really have to do anything. There's no point because you're just going to chase that. Today it's going to be 10 maybe up or 5 down or whatever. If it's as long as it's 10 degrees or less, do not make any changes. Not required. And if you are doing any speed cycles or would like to, the calibration becomes even more important because as we speed things up or the higher temperatures we go or these highly technical materials, that window of perfection starts to narrow pretty quickly. So we want to make sure that we're giving it the best possible chance, and that's by understanding what's happening in the oven and calibrating. How do you do it? Well, you take some of the heat verification rings, and there's a lot of them out there. We have Zerlux has kits that you can get through Zahn. Orton Ceramics is another one out of Ohio. They're very good. Ferro rings, PTC rings, they're all kind of doing the same thing. You put it into the oven, you fire it, and then check for what was the amount of shrinkage factor that ring shrinks. That will tell you what high temperature achieved inside the oven. If it matches the readout on the front, great, perfect. If it doesn't, then you can go in and adjust accordingly. So how you do that? Of course, firing tray, and there's a program that each one of these manufacturers do recommend for their rings. I like to use the Orton. There's my personal favorites, but you can try any of them and see which ones you like the best. The Orton Ceramics, the one I like to use is called the Temp Tab 700, and that's designed for a high temperature of 1500. So you set the program to do 10 degrees per minute up to 1500, hold for 2 hours, and then down at 10 degrees per minute. When you measure it, whatever that measurement is will correlate to this chart that comes with each one, and they each have a lot number to match up to the chart and the rings. So make sure they're the same. And then whatever that caliper measurement is tells you exactly what high temperature was achieved. And in this scenario, let's say it was 20 degrees too low. You have the opportunity to go into the oven menu and increase by 20 degrees, or you can do what I call Kentucky windage. Just add that Kentucky windage to your sintering high temperature. If it's normally 1550 sintering high temperature, you're going to have to add 20 degrees, making it 1570 high temperature. Pretty simple and straightforward. It's quick and easy to do the Kentucky windage, but I would tell you probably best to go ahead and go into the menu, take the time to adjust it accordingly. And that way you will always, there's no question to somebody else who comes along and says, hey, wait a minute, this temperature is wrong. It doesn't agree with the IFUs. I'm going to change it back down. So that way the readout always looks like what the book temperature or IFUs are. And the temperature rings, these are some Zerlux ones. These are calibration rings that are available through Zahn. And as I mentioned, the other ones available would be the Orton Ceramics, Ferro rings. There's others. There's plenty. Just utilize whichever one you feel comfortable with. And little quick quote, Benjamin Franklin, he says, best investment is in the tools of one's own trade. I mean, this is one way that you help build your own business, build your, build the department that you need. And to that note, we're going to talk about the Shenpaz oven today, and most specifically, we're going to talk about the CentraPro Max. This particular oven is basically taking the CS, which is the chair side oven, very small chamber, but extremely fast capabilities. It can do some seriously quick sintering. But what they've done is they've created the best of both worlds with the CS oven and the larger capacity of the CentraPro, and came out with CentraPro Max. So you have high-speed programs, you have big chamber capacity, even capable of doing full arch in about 3.5 hours, 3 or 3.5 hours. But point being, that is its capacity and length as well. So I would look at this as really you would want another oven as well. You want this to be your secondary oven for all of those rush cases, for backup in case something happens to the bigger, the other long-term oven. It's it kind of fills in that gap, and especially if you're close to a practice and you're doing same day cases with them, or maybe it's next door, or maybe you are within one of those practices. This would be a super ideal oven to go ahead and utilize. Some of the quick features: it does have a maximum temperature of 1800 C. Maximum sintering temperature is 1630. But that's the long program, 1630. I know that's written a little confusing, but the maximum temperature is actually 1800. Single units, quick, up, down, very fast. And so it has a lot of capacity for potentially future materials that require even higher temperatures. Ramp rate, blistering 600 C per minute. It's really fast at 10 degrees per second. And for a larger chamber, this is really unique. It's not something you see on any other furnace. I haven't seen it anywhere else yet like this. What is really nice about this oven is its multi-process capabilities, meaning you can sinter all your zirconia in it. If you are doing a lithium silicate product, you can do the crystallization bake in this particular furnace as well. It has the capacity to do that. And if you're glazing units and your porcelain furnace is already used for something else, you can glaze in this one as well. So it has a lot of functionality built into one package. Great cost saver. I'm not going to bore you with too much of these details. It's heavy, about 78 pounds. The Wi-Fi is built in. It is 240 volt. There is not a 120 version of this. Obviously, when you're cranking that much heat to a material, you have to go ahead and keep it at 240 volt. Maximum capacity with the double trays is 50 crowns. So you can do 24 crowns in each tray, 25 crowns in each tray, or full arch as well. You can do full arch cases in this particular unit. And so that is going to wrap it up pretty much for me today. The Shenpaz oven is, talk to your Zahn sales team. We're happy to help get any more details on any of these products for you. That's what we're here for. We want to be your partner on all of your needs.
I thank you so much. There was one question, and the question was, one of our attendees had to step away and wanted to know if this was going to be recorded, and it is. Everyone that registers for any of our webinars, we always record everything, and you will receive the recorded version in your email. So if you want to, check back on something and watch it again, you're more than welcome. Like I said, check your email and you will receive it. If you can't watch for some reason and you did register, again, you'll get it a couple of days later in your inbox. So always check your email. And if for some reason you don't receive it, just let me know and I'd be happy to send you the recorded version. It also lives forever on YouTube on our Zahn Academy page on YouTube. But I just have a couple more polls that we prepared for you. But first up, you know what? Robert says this was a great presentation. So thank you so much.
My pleasure. Thank you.
So I do have a poll or two. A couple of you were not satisfied with your current zirconia. So I just like to know, and so would Steve, what was it about the zirconia that you weren't satisfied with? If you wouldn't mind just answering that, we'll leave that up for just a couple of seconds. And some of it is, translucency, aesthetics, strength on it. And it seems like overall aesthetics, Steve. Do you have anything to add to that?
No, I mean, it usually is aesthetics because we have a lot of choices on the strength. So you can pick pick your strength category, if you will, and then find the aesthetics that you're after within that strength category. And I think that's why the yttrium layered materials that have the chroma and the yttrium into one are so appealing, because you have both built into one product. You don't have to necessarily choose. and you don't have to inventory all these different zirconia types within your stock. You can go to the shelf, pull out the YML in the shade that you need, and you're off and running.
Awesome. So the second one was, would you want to learn more about Zahn Zirconia offerings? I think you did a great job, Steve, but there are a couple of people that do. And if you did check yes to this box, I'll be giving you a call and you can, discuss with me what it is you want to learn about, and I'll be more than happy to get the answers for you on that. So thank you for answering that one.
Oh, and you know what? Just a quick word on that too. Throughout this entire presentation, I talked an awful lot about translucency because that's such a huge component of aesthetics. But what I didn't get into was the numbers. X percentage of translucency in this product, or Y percentage in this product, or Z percentage in this product. And I didn't for a purpose and for a reason, because number one, I am highly skeptical of those results. Unless it is ISO standardized testing for translucency, I don't believe them. It's that simple, because you can use whatever wavelength of light you want to increase and boost up that translucency. So it's really important to not get caught in that trap of, I'm buying this zirconia because it has this translucency. The real test is, what does it look like to your eye? If it doesn't look right like it's supposed to, then there's probably something we can do to tweak and correct that sintering cycle and get the best possible results.
Awesome. We have a new financing option. I don't know if any of you are aware of it, but it is 0% for 12 months on equipment and merchandise. So that's something that's new out there that I figured if you're interested, I'd be able to give you a call and just fill you in if there's any type of mill or 3D printer or, zirconia or anything that you're interested in financing. This would be the option for you. So thank you so much for answering this one as well. I want to let you know what's coming up next on Zahn Academy. Next week, we have Dan Morano coming in, and he's going to be discussing utilizing all of the tools in your digital toolbox. So that'll be a pretty cool one. You just go up onto zahndental.com, hit the education tab. That'll take you over to where you need to go to register for that one. And then that's next Wednesday. Next Thursday, 8/21, we're going to be having a webinar with Harvest. We're going to be talking about pink aesthetics for milled implant hybrids. And this one is, making it simple with Harvest Easy Gum and Zerlux PMMA. So that's next Thursday. 8/21, special time, 4 p.m. Eastern. So we usually do our webinars at 2 p.m. Eastern. This one's going to be a little later because our friends at Harvest are over on the West Coast. So we want to make it a little bit easier for them to get online with us. And then on September 4th, we're going to be doing another one, and that's for 3D printed hybrids made easy with Harvest Easy Gum and Rodent Titan. That's going to be on September 4th, Thursday, September 4th, 4 p.m. special time. And if you're in the Dallas area around August 29th, 3Shape has their new 3Shape Academy, and they're going to be doing a digital denture course with us featuring 3Shape and Asiga printers. So that, if you would go on to, 3Shape's website, you'll be able to get on to Eventbrite and sign up for that one. That's at their new academy over in Dallas, Texas. And our roadshow is coming to you in Kentucky. So if you're in the Kentucky area or the surrounding areas, or you just want to go to see beautiful Lexington, Kentucky with us, we have an exocad design course, which is from beginner to all on X on September 18th. And then our roadshow will be happening on September 19th. And that is, totally demonstration-based presentations along with 15 manufacturer partners that are going to be there for a little mini trade show with us. So if you'd like to join us for any of this, please contact your Zahn representative, contact me, contact Steve. We'd be more than happy to help you out. And we look forward to seeing you at our live in-person, courses. They're great. Steve's been at one. We have a good time together. So come join us for a day of education, or actually 2 days of education if you could. But Steve, let's see. I think we have a couple of questions here.
Okay.
Okay, so Robert wants to know, his overall shades are a bit too light. Any tips besides pick a darker shade?
Yeah. I would say first, let's find out where you are by creating a baseline on the calibration. Let's make sure that that furnace is doing what it says on the front of it, that's happening inside. And then the other thing would be to let's, to always deepen the shade, you can lower the temperature. Usually 20-degree increments is what is necessary. 10 doesn't quite do anything. Like we talked about in that calibration process, 10 is not enough to see, the human eye cannot detect the difference. It is a slight difference, but it's not enough. 20-degree drop, check again. And that would be in your high temperature. Don't change hold time. Keep the hold time exactly the same. Just drop about 20 degrees on your high temp.
Okay. Robert also wants to know, he has a Shenpaz sintering oven, and he'd like to ask you about how to clean it.
So the easiest, or really the safest, is to just dry brush any residue that might build up on the heating elements. Dry brush and vacuum. Kind of reach up in there and go ahead and use a soft dry brush. Then you'll want to run a program to, basically recondition, make sure that you're not leaving any contaminants floating around in there. And that's really it. There's really not much else cleaning that needs to be done other than that purge cycle that we talked about periodically. In other words, you're going to purge that, once a month or once a quarter, depending on what your workload is going through that oven. But utilize a purge all or white zirconia to absorb all contaminants. And that's it.
Awesome. Well, I thank you so much, Steve, for all of your time. I thank all of our attendees for joining us today. It's a pleasure having you with us and being so interactive. We love it. I just want to wish everybody a great rest of the day, and I hope to see you next week on Zahn Academy with Dan Moreno. Have a great day, everybody. Thank you
Thank you,
again.
everybody.
Have a good day.